Welcome to another episode of Stoke Meter. And our guest today is Sean Covey. I have known of Sean since 1983. And Sean, welcome, and taking your time away from your busy schedule. I don't know if you knew this, Gary, but he's the president of Frankly Covey Education. Yeah. It's amazing what he does over there. So again, Sean, welcome.
Thank you, Maurice and Gary. Good to be with you today.
Yes. Well, I've got to go back to 1983. This is the first time I ever laid eyes on you. And we were playing in the football. Actually, it was the Utah State semifinals. And you were playing with Provo. I was with Jordan. I was a bench warmer over there. And I just remember how helpless I felt when you just absolutely decimated us. No matter what route your receivers were going, no matter where your running back was going, it was awful. Matter of fact, one of your running backs was Charlie Brown, if I remember correctly, back in the day. But it was amazing. And so you were actually the first time that I had ever heard of the name Covey.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it was a nightmare.
Yeah. No, I remember that game. Yeah. It was Jordan Beat Diggers, right?
Yeah. What other, at least you were the Bulldogs, right?
Yeah. They ought to just change it to Diggers.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because you fast forward, and this is only a couple of years later, and I was getting into some reading, and I remember seeing the name Covey on the book, and I thought, I wonder if this is the same guy that destroyed us. This is like 1986 after I'd spent some time over in Eastern Idaho at college, and
sure.
It was the book Spiritual Roots of Human Relations, written by your father. Okay. And I was so blown away by that book because it was such a great segue from spiritual matters and then tying it into everyday matters. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. And it actually, it really made a difference in every aspect I was doing from an academic standpoint and the whole bit. And so I became enamored with that. And so anyway, I went to BYU Hawaii. And while I was at BYU Hawaii, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do for work. And as fate would have it, I ran, it was the Jingle Bell Run in Honolulu. Mm-hmm. And I went down there with this guy named Morris Graham. I don't know if you know who Morris Graham is, but Morris used to teach with your father, and your father actually introduced him to his wife. And it just so happened that he was one of the premier guys in organizational development back in the day.
Sure.
And that's when I made my career choice, and it's your fault.
Yeah. My father's fault. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, it was. I would have never picked up that book if you wouldn't have trashed us.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Football game. But anyway,
that's funny.
That was a long intro to that, but I'm just so grateful that you're here to talk about some different things. And when our kids were first going into school, well, we were over at the Mountainville Academy over there, and that leader within was a big part of that curriculum.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, so everyone knows, at least most people know, what 7 Habits of Highly Effective People are. And a lot of people then started seeing what you did on 7 Habits for Highly Effective Teens. And what was amazing about it is it made it more edible, if you will. And I'm just wondering, what can you tell us that led you down that path to really emphasize on teens?
Yeah, sure. Well, so I played after high school, I played football at BYU, you
Right.
know, and had a fun time there. And because I was playing quarterback, I started getting asked to speak at like high school assemblies, and
Right.
I hated speaking. I was very shy when I was younger, and it was my worst nightmare. And
Right.
but I would do it because I felt like I wanted to help, and so I started doing that, and I did it like every week for 4 or 5 years. I probably gave hundreds of these, and to the point where I didn't, you know, I got used to it and comfortable with it, and didn't have to prepare anymore. I just wing it, and then I got comfortable learning how to talk to teenagers, right?
Right.
So I was watching my dad's book do so well when he came out with the 7 Habits in 1989.
Wow.
He came out with that, and I read it, and I thought it's kind of boring, Dad.
Yeah. What's a paradigm shift?
You need some cartoons and have a little fun with it. And so I thought one day I was talking to my sister, and I was an English major, and I focused on writing, so I like to write. And I said, I want to write a book. And she goes, you got to write 7 Habits for Teenagers. And it just hit me. It wasn't my idea. It was my sister's. I thought, yeah, why not? I know. So I used my experience with working with teens, and took these habits and said, I'm going to make them come alive. So habit 1, be proactive. What does that mean to a teenager, right? And
exactly.
Think win-win mean to a teenager.
Right.
And immediately just 100 ideas come to your mind, right? Think win-win. It's like, well, geez, what do teenagers struggle with? Comparing themselves with each other.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Constantly feeling superior or inferior at any given moment.
Yes.
And just would attack all these issues of school and parents and friends and dating and addictions and and tried to make these principles come alive for the teenager. And I probably had 250 teenagers help me.
Oh my goodness.
I'd interview them. I'd do focus groups with them. I'd say, read this. Tell me what you think. And they'd read it and say, sucks. Why are you trying so hard? This is the first time I did a focus group with them. Don't try to be a teenager. You're not anymore. Just be who you are. I rewrote it, and they said, yeah, that sounds much better. So that book has so much input from teenagers behind it, so many of their own stories. So I just wanted to make these powerful habits come alive to help teenagers live better lives, be happier, recognize when they're going the wrong direction, And when I wrote the book, I had a piece of paper on top of my computer, just with the word hope. I want the overall tone to be hopeful. You can get better. You can change. You can overcome. You're doing fine. You're affirming your worth and potential. So that's kind of how it all began.
That is absolutely fantastic. I'm sorry, Gary, did I just cut you off?
Oh, no. I was just going to say, I was in doing some research for this podcast. I was just kind of looking, and that's one of the things I looked at was that book. And it's interesting to me how this is what, late 80s, early 90s, early 90s era.
Yeah.
This is pre-internet. And it's amazing how well it's aged. And in fact, a lot of those habits are even so much more important now, in the age of the internet and everything else. And so I think that, kudos to you and your focus group and your 250 teens, because it really is as important now as it ever was, if not more.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think, so much is going on right now. There's so much mental health. There's a mental health crisis, depression, anxiety, abuse, and trauma, tons of it everywhere. It's an epidemic.
Yeah.
We talk about the COVID epidemic. It's nothing compared to what's happening with teenagers right now. Social media isn't helping.
Yeah.
So having some constants like these habits are really principles, right? The idea of begin with the end in mind is the principle of vision, right?
Yes.
And be proactive is a principle of responsibility and initiative. And these never go out of style. They work here, they work in Japan, they work in Jakarta.
Yeah.
They work everywhere, and they're timeless.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a couple of teenagers right now. And when I tell them, you know what, we gotta look at a vision. We got to get down into that. one of the most difficult talks I've ever had. And I'm just wondering, what have you found has worked? I mean, across the board, because again, your book has had a significant impact across the globe. But how do you start a discussion like that? Because Dad, what's vision, X-ray vision, whatever vision it might be, but how do you have that discussion?
It's hard.
I'm glad that you said it.
I acknowledge that, like my own kids, like my son who's in college now read one of my teenage books the other day and goes, "Oh my gosh, Dad, this is really good." I said, "I begged you to read it for 7 years while you were a teenager and you never did. Now that you're 20, you pick it up. Way to go." But I think bribery's good. Torture, make them read it. No, but I think it's, working with teenagers is hard, and I think you got to stay close to them, and you got to try to influence them when they're open to your influence, and sometimes they're not.
Right.
It's really cool to see that the 7 habits are being used in schools a lot.
Yes.
You mentioned Leader in Me. Leader in Me is a leadership program. That's in about 5,000 schools now in 50 countries. And it's used as, you go to a school and you learn how to read and write and do math. And you also learn now personal leadership in these schools. Yeah. So you learn the 7 habits, you learn how to set and achieve goals, you learn how to solve problems with people. And these are the social emotional skills that are so key to your future. Yeah. And so, and the 7 habits is part of that. And they're memorable. Right. They make sense. They're intuitive. The kids don't have to unlearn things like us adults do.
Yeah, that's true. Right.
So it's exciting to see that schools are doing it, and then you don't have to, as a parent, force it on your kids.
Yes. Hey, you had that planned very well. Yeah. Well, you bring up another thing too, and that's a social emotional. And back in the day, I remember, I'm a child of the 80s, and it was one of those things that you just went and did stuff. That we didn't have all this internet stuff. And there was the comparison game's always going to be there, and dealing with gossip or what have you. But with the advent of social media and those different things there, what have you seen as most critical as far as maintaining that social and emotional balance?
Yeah, it's just moderation in all things, I think. Balance, because you're not gonna, I think I wouldn't recommend as a parent taking away your kid's phone because he or she's spending too much time on it, but it's also a problem if they're there all day.
Yes.
And so our family, because it can consume you. And I think it's also the wrong approach to say, just do whatever you want. You can play video games for 12 hours a day. I think that's wrong too. I think as a family, you need to sit down, whatever makeup your family is, and just talk it through and just say, hey, this is what we did. We watched that movie, The Social Dilemma. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we watched that and kind of spooks you. And we listened to a guy named Colin Karchner. I don't know if he's your
relative.
He was outstanding. We went and listened to him, and he talked about some of the challenges of technology and what it's doing to rewire our kids' brains. Right. So we talked with our kids about the challenges and the negative impact if you do too much of it. And we came up with our own plan. And so we use screen time, we have Apple phones, but we limit what they can do. And they come every day and ask me for more time.
They negotiate. They negotiate. Master negotiators.
But they know. And then we have rules like you don't do it in the car. You have to learn to be bored. I'm so bored. That's good for you.
Yeah.
And we don't do it at the dinner table. On Sundays, we try to cut way back on technology. So we just have our own plan. It works for us. Right. And it's still a challenge even then. We have a rule that you can't bring your phone to your bed because you want it at the docking station. I don't want my kids up till 3 a.m. on Snapchat.
Yeah.
And so we have that rule, and they keep it most of the time. Sometimes they don't. And so we keep working it. But it can be a really good thing and a really bad thing. And if it's uncurtailed, it can be a really bad thing.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Gary, did you,
No, go ahead.
It's interesting to hear this from you because you're the subject matter expert. And the assumption is always, Sean has it all all buttoned down. And just to hear that you have the same struggles as little me, it does a heart good. I'm not going to lie.
But your first instinct is to take away the phone, but the kids have got to learn this is their world, right? They're digital natives. Right. They got to live in it and navigate it. I think just teaching them temperance and moderation and balance,
right.
And having them involved in other things like sports and other activities, I think is really healthy.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to see, like if you look at the differences between, say, our generation versus our parents, you compare that between what's happened between our generations and now our kids. I mean, it's like night and day. I mean, we got like a cordless phone between, or a microwave difference. These guys have the internet and they're so connected. And so, yeah, I agree with you. I think it's so important to allow them to have what makes up their generation. And it is completely different than ours, and so, yeah, no, I appreciate you, kind of having that moderation and all things mentality. I think that makes a lot of sense for especially teens. Yeah, it's interesting.
Well, and one thing that you might want to know about Karchner up there, Sean, is he's a nurse as well, and so he sees all kinds of crazy things on a day-to-day basis, and just hear that come in from even the physical side and how that affects that is fascinating to hear.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Well, like you said, just the mental health aspects of all people right now, especially during a pandemic, but also the youth is so incredibly important. So one of the questions I have for you, Sean, while I've got you cornered here, is, you talk about moderation and all things, and you talk about balance. And one of the challenges that I see for today's teens is, let me step back a little bit. When we were kids, like say in high school, I was a solid A/B student, just enough to stay out of trouble.
Yeah.
But I wasn't looking at, what is my career, and I got to start doing, volunteer, and I got to start doing this and this and this. At some point, as far as seeing the end in mind, how do teens now navigate that with so much pressure to be doing everything, or they're going to be a failure and not get into the right college, or you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. It's pressure packed for kids. I've got right now a senior in high school, sophomore in high school, and a 7th grader at home. I've got some older kids too, have already graduated, but it's hard. There's a lot of pressure to get good grades, to do well in the ACT. You compare your scores with everybody else, get into the right school, right?
Exactly.
And back in my day, getting into BYU, which is really hard to get in now, was like you had to have a P for a pulse, and now you've got to have a 3.9, a 30 ACT, and tons of extracurricular and student body president. And I see people with 4.0s and all this background and extracurricular, and they don't get in. It's, it just puts pressure on people. And I think for young women especially, I think there's I see a lot of eating disorders working with teenagers, like a lot, like every 3rd girl kind of a lot who has anorexia or bulimia or a body image problem, or that's a challenge, I think. So I think I think these are very real, and they're different than what we faced. So social media exacerbates it. Yeah, I know. I think social media exacerbates the problem. It highlights it, and you're living your life on stage, right?
Yeah.
So I think I'm just saying, I think it's important for parents to stay close to your kids, help them through this. I think generally try to be a cheerleader. They have plenty of critics, all around them at school, and I think generally just ask yourself. Sometimes you have to discipline and be strong and right and take a stand, but generally I hope all kids feel from their parents, hey, I've got my cheerleader here backing me up in my corner. Because they're not going to get
or you can be that cheerleader for others as well that don't have that parental support or that background.
Absolutely.
I think that's incredibly important too. We did a podcast earlier an MMA fighter, and it was interesting to hear who made up his cheerleaders. It was a drug dealing,
he was a
felon. It was his high school guidance counselor, and it was his father. And he was able to take a piece of each of those, regardless of them being imperfect. And they became his cheerleaders and his support system.
Yeah, that's great. It's really good.
It's so.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just curious. So, as someone who doesn't know you, who doesn't know what you're doing right now, what is your organization? How are you guys? What are your focus at this point? What are you trying to accomplish? How does all this stuff kind of segue and fit into your overall goal and mission?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So I work at our company's called Franklin Covey. Covey my father started that company, and Franklin Quest was started by Hiram Smith.
Right.
They merged in 1997, it's like 24 years ago.
Can't believe it.
Franklin Covey, and similar missions, and it's all about unleashing greatness in people.
Right.
So our mission is to enable greatness in people and organizations everywhere. So we believe that there's inherent worth and potential and amazing ability in everybody, and we believe it can be unleashed. And also in organizations, right? An organization, if you treat it like a person, there's greatness in organizations everywhere also. So that's what we do. We work with big companies, small companies, mid-sized companies. We work with the US Navy, a lot of government, Veterans Administration, a lot of government organizations. We work with police forces, and we work with tons of schools and colleges and universities. And it's all around, we go in and we teach them. We have tons of different programs and offerings, but we basically teach them to be good leaders. And you start with yourself. It's inside out. You get your own act together. You don't have to be perfect, but to some degree, you get your own act together. And then how to work well with other people, and how to lead people, and how to manage well, and how to manage things but lead people, because there's a big difference. Yeah. So we work with, for example, every Marriott hotel in America.
Oh, man.
We teach them a methodology for achieving goals. We call them WIGs, wildly important goals, as opposed to pigs. Pigs are pretty important goals, but what's wildly important? And we teach them how to run their hotels really well through a goal setting system, right?
Right.
And then we work with Alpine, Mountainville Academy Elementary School. We teach little 6-year-olds how to seek first to understand, then to be understood.
Yes.
Right.
Yep, that's exactly right. One of the hardest things you can ever teach a little kid.
It is. Exactly.
But at the same point, one of the things you realize as you get older is, even as adults, we're all a bunch of second graders on the playground.
Yeah, we are. We are. Yeah.
So true.
It doesn't change that much, does it?
No, it really doesn't.
When you're little, you look at us old people and say, wow, they must be so mature. Then when you become one of us, you realize you're still just as immature as you were when you were 7, right?
Yeah, I remember waiting. I always thought, okay, when I get a certain age, like when I'm 21, they're going to pull me into a closet and tell me all the secrets of being an adult. And that hasn't happened yet.
I know.
I'm still waiting for that meeting.
Yeah.
So
you always think your presidents and your civic leaders and stuff got it all figured out. And then when you become an adult, you realize they don't know what they're doing either.
They're just winging it.
They're just winging it.
Everyone's winging it.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, so what aspect of your organization right now do you feel is the most important, that's hitting the biggest nerve, that's creating the biggest change for good in society right now?
Yeah, I think the work we're doing with young children in schools.
Yeah,
I really do. We started with corporations and then went into schools, but it's so exciting to see. We'll take a school in the Bronx, for example.
Yeah.
They've got where the poverty level is 100% of the kids are on free and reduced lunch, right? And tons of different languages. And we can go into a school and say, you know what? We're going to implement Leader in Me in your school, and you're going to see remarkable outcomes. And step 1, staff, get on the same page, and let's write a mission statement for your schools. Air the dirty laundry, talk about it, fix it. That's step one. Step two is we're going to teach the kids leadership, and you got to model it first. Right. And we're going to teach them goal setting and how to think win-win and how to resolve problems, how to value differences. And we're going to teach them a goal setting system for how to get things done. Step three, we're going to give every child a leadership role and responsibility. Why are you running the school? Let the kids run it.
That's a great concept. Love it.
And so we say, look, what you're doing a morning announcements. You've got 5 gifted kids here that love to talk, love the limelight. Have them be your morning announcement leaders. Oh, why? Great idea. And look at these kids. They're so friendly. Why don't we have a greeter for every class, or 2 for every class, that come early and greet everybody every day?
Yes.
And these people would be great for doing tours when parents come. And when you have assemblies, these ones are great with audio visual. And so we give everyone a leadership role and responsibility of something they're really good at and that they love to do.
Right.
Okay. And then we do this and watch what happens in the school in the Bronx, right? Suddenly your behavior problems drop way down immediately.
Yep.
Communication opens up. Communication with the home opens up. They go home and talk to their parents about their goals. Right. We don't do parent-teacher conferences. We do student-led conferences. The student comes to their parent and invites them to a conference where they're the presenter and they talk about their goals and how they're doing in front of the teacher and the parent, right? You just turn it upside down. And we take these schools and within 2 years, they're different. They're transformed, and what results is the academics. We don't focus on academics, but because there's more time in class focused on learning, because there's goal setting going on, better behavior, the scores shoot up in reading and math, right?
Yeah.
So that's exciting. We're doing it in 50 countries. We just opened up in China. We've got schools all throughout the Netherlands, all throughout Brazil, hundreds of them. Yeah. And most of these are public schools.
It's amazing.
And yeah, so it's thrilling, and it's the most exciting thing I've been part of since I've been in business.
You know what's interesting though too is I was in the business. There's a lot of your consultants I know just because I was in the same business at one time.
Yeah.
And trying to teach organizations this, there's so many differences. There's so many silos, and oftentimes it falls on deaf ears. And quite frankly, that's why I'm not in an organization. One of those things. But when you look at how you can impact those young lives, and from a generational standpoint, I think you figured out a formula, because doing it when they're already old and they know it all is a whole different ball game from when you can influence them at that level. And one of the things that I'm interested in too is you had mentioned that you teach them to appreciate differences. And how do you approach that? Because quite frankly, I mean, look at the climate nowadays, and I'm not making anything political at all, as much as how do you do that for the kids? And because I have a feeling a lot of listeners can really learn from that.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's we get, equity in education has become the big topic, right? Fairness for everybody and treating everyone equitable. And we, they ask us all the time, what are you guys doing about it? I'm thinking, geez, I mean, what we're doing about it is our program is about it, because we have in every Leader Me school, we teach them these 5 core paradigms or mindsets. Right. And we say, if you don't get these right, all the behaviors you do won't work. And the first one we teach them is that every child can be a leader, not those 5 that we typically think of as the leaders, not the student body president. Everyone can be a leader. And, leadership is doing the right thing even when no one is watching. And you can lead yourself. You can be a leader in your family. You can be a leader among your friends. There's just so many forms of leadership, right?
Yes.
So that's the foundation. And then the second paradigm we teach is that everyone has genius.
I love it.
And that if we look for it, everyone will find genius in everybody, right? And that's, talk about leveling the playing field. It doesn't matter if you're what race you're from, or what background you come from, or your circumstance, or your parental situation or family situation. Everyone has genius. Everyone can be a leader. And you start with that premise. And you know, kids see that and they feel it. I remember the first Leader in Me school, the people that inspired this idea in the first place.
Right.
A.B. Combs Elementary in Raleigh, North Carolina, public elementary school, about failing and about to be shut down.
Oh.
And they come up with this idea of using the 7 habits and using leadership and turning their school over to the kids, right?
Right.
They do it and become the #1 school of their kind in the country, you know, 3 years later.
#1 3 years later.
Yes. A.B. Combs Elementary. And Raleigh, North Carolina. I went and visited this school.
Right.
And all I felt was every teacher believes every child is a genius.
I love it.
And you could just feel the confidence level of these kids. Like, these teachers love me and think I'm great. And they just rise to the occasion. So, you know, there's a lot of things we can do to help level the playing field and create equity.
Yeah.
And, you know, and avoid, I think racism, I think anything that limits the potential in the eyes of somebody else, of a person, is a terrible thing.
Sure.
And, you know, and I think, so the way we're fighting against that is by teaching these paradigms, right? That there's genius in everybody.
I love that.
Yeah.
The genius. Matter of fact, it's funny. I was reading a book this morning, and it goes, Einstein, genius. And then the next phrase was, would you want him on your football team?
It's funny. I see kind of two universal truths that kind of hit me from what you're saying, Sean. And especially it's poignant for me in a healthcare organization or in a corporation is, you know, you are literally turning it up on its head. It's not lead from top down. It's more of I'm here for you. Let's see how we can make you a better person. And then it's focusing on the strengths. It seems like so many times, for whatever reason, leaders feel like they need to look at the weaknesses of their staff or the weaknesses of their children or whatever it is. Yeah. As opposed to, let's see what happens when we look at the strengths and let those blossom. Yeah. And then everything else can kind of take care of itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at some point, you don't need an Einstein on your football team. You know?
Right.
And so, I mean, I look at the people that have been, you know, important to me that I look up to. And a lot of times it's those that lead by example and those that lead almost from behind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Truly.
That are giving encouragement. So if I'm an organization and I want to reach out to you guys, what's the best way to do it? Like, what's the process? How would we get, you know, I'm looking at like, say, like a little hospital out here in Benson, Arizona. And I wanted to see how we could take advantage of your guys' resources.
Yeah. Well, I think it'd be best if you just go on to franklincovey.com, right? Our website. There's a lot of places where you can just inquire and ask questions or get contact information. And we have people all over the world. Everyone lives in their home areas, right? We don't have really a big headquarters. We have a headquarters in Salt Lake City, but it's small. Most of our people are out in the field and around the world. And so if you did that, we'd get in contact with you with a local person, and they'd talk with you about different options that we have. And we kind of, you know, Apple Music. Oh yeah. Remember how it used to be iTunes? You'd buy one song at a time. Yeah. Well, that's how most training companies used to be. And we used to work with companies that way too. Well, which of our programs would you like? Now we say, hey, we'll give you all of them. You use the ones you want for the same low price as you'd get for one of them. Yes. It's like a subscription, right, to Apple Music. Yeah. So it's really, companies love it because it's like, here, you know, we have 85 different offerings. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is one of them, right? Yes. And they can choose and say, you know what, for this group, I'd like this program. But this group really needs to build trust. So we'll use the speed of trust with them. And this group, they don't have a lot of time. And so we'll use those little 15-minute lessons you've got for them. Yeah. And it's all on one low price. So that's how we work with companies. And then with schools, we do the same kind of thing. Yeah. That's awesome. But yeah, we'd love to, you know, work with anyone that has an interest.
Gary needs all the help he can get.
I do, man. Absolutely. Always.
Yeah, and then we have triage
Yeah.
for Gary.
No, that's fantastic. That's got to be exciting to have something that can truly make a difference. I mean, that's one of the things that gets me excited about the field that I'm in, and I'm sure you kind of share that same excitement, knowing that you're changing people's lives.
Yeah.
Sean, there is another question though too. Last time I was in Utah, my friends, they live in Alpine over there, and they took me to something that they took their they took their daughter. I had no idea you had this. Bridle Up Hope. Bridle Up Hope. And when they were telling me about the story, I was touched. I was touched. And to hear from their perspective how it impacted their daughter was gigantic. So I only got the high level piece of that. And I remember driving back by the stables were there, but there was definitely a really cool feeling over there, and just wondered what you can tell us about that. Because again, rarely do you go with someplace that you feel an instantaneous, wow, this is a good place. But yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Well, my daughter Rachel passed away in an accident about 8 years ago,
Right.
and she was 21. So I remember thinking, I will never be happy again. It was such a shocker for us.
Sure.
And so during the next few weeks, we had so many people drop by and just say, I want you to know your daughter changed my life. I'd say, really? Well, how? Well, I was messed up doing bad things, and she started taking me horseback riding every week in the mountains.
No.
And it's like, it fixed me. It cured me, because I don't know, being alone, time to think, being on a horse just made all the difference, being in nature. So we got the idea of trying to help young women that were struggling with horses. And then it worked so well with the first 5 girls we tried it with, kind of a neighborhood project that we expanded. Then our vision got bigger, and then we bought some land, and then we had people donate 100 acres, and then just miracle after miracle. And we just built this big facility, and so it's called Bridle Up Hope.
Right.
And it's an organization. Our mission is to inspire hope, resilience, and confidence in young women through equestrian training. So we take them through 14 weeks. They come for like 3 hours a week, and we put them through horseback riding. We teach them horsemanship skills, and we teach them the 7 habits while they're on the horse.
I love it.
So it's not academic. It's like, for example, today we're gonna have the lesson, and we're gonna teach you how to trot.
Right.
So they saddle and bridle and get on the horse. And at one point we'll say, did you feel that? For the first time, the horse felt like you were in charge. And the girl would say, yeah, I felt that. So that's what it feels like to be proactive, right? You're in charge, and you can, whatever you just did right there, you can do it in your own life. You can take charge of your own life, and watch what happens when the world feels you're in charge.
That's
of your
awesome.
own life, right?
Oh,
and they get it, right? And you teach these lessons naturally, and then they serve, and they muck out stalls, and they groom the horses and feed them. And
they do all that. They muck out the stalls and everything.
Yeah, they have them do everything. And I'm telling you, the girls love it. It's a girls only program, no boys allowed. And in 14 weeks, we've had like the 97% of parents say it was life altering for their kid.
Wow.
And it helps them go from here to going up this way.
Wow.
By giving them resiliency skills. It's just been remarkable. So we've expanded now. We're going to franchise it throughout the world. We've got 5 other locations. We want to get to 1,000.
That's
small
amazing.
Little vision that started. I mean, we started really small and got bigger and bigger. But these young women, there's a mental health crisis going on, and we're trying to help do our part.
You know what's interesting about this whole thing is we started from 7 habits of highly effective people, and it was more of a business proposition. But when I look at it from what you're doing with Bridle Up Hope, and especially with 7 habits in the schools and the leader within, it comes at that personal level. And when you're at that personal level, that's where the true impact happens. It can't be something that is synthetic or whatever the word I'm trying to think of. It can't feel that fakiness. And when I hear you talk about that Bridle Up Hope, again, now I know why I felt that pretty cool feeling when I was there, because it's obvious it impacts you. And what's amazing is from that personal tragedy, you're impacting, who knows, probably thousands of lives generationally, I went down, right?
Yeah.
And that is fantastic. And again, I came across that by complete accident. Some I was there, and I'm glad I did. And
thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
We feel when you read the applications of these girls, we get applications every day,
right?
And it's it makes you cry. I mean, it just breaks your heart when you read, young girl, she might be 14,
right?
She's lost hope. She won't come out of her room because she got bullied for a year, and then her mom will say, well, would you like to go horseback? I'll do that. I'll come out of my room for that, right?
Yeah.
And she gets there and she has a private lesson with the instructor one-on-one, and just on the side learns a little bit about beginning with the end in mind, right? And then the next week she learns how to think win-win a little bit while she's learning all these horsemanship skills, and 13 weeks later she's like a different person. It's really amazing. So I'm not saying that to brag at all. It's been just been a work of love, and our family is really involved. Everyone's involved in some degree, and it's our way of giving back.
So. That is one heck of a way to give back. That is one heck of a way to give back. I'm not gonna lie, when I heard this story, I was I don't know, Gary, you're a horse guy too, but just
okay.
Oh gosh, it hits me right there.
That's great.
It really, well, I think that just shows a lot of, who your daughter was, first of all, and you were talking earlier about, it's the things that we do when nobody's looking that really impact a lot. And then I also know the serenity and the healing of horses.
Yeah, right.
They're just beautiful creatures, and so I just think that had to have been an amazing and an ongoing healing aspect for both you and your family. But when you have one of those things that make a real difference, you kind of put it in motion and it just blossoms. And that's congratulations on getting that going.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Totally. You never know what life's going to throw at you, right? And so sometimes you have deliberate plans, and sometimes you just ride the waves that come your way. I'm more of a wave rider.
Well, I don't know where you are at, excuse me, in your quest to expand that program, but when you get to the point where you're really trying to push that, let me know as well, because I'd like to assist in that any way I can, and any way Stoke.
No, thank you so much. Well, we're actively starting this summer to find locations.
Awesome.
Okay. It works really simple. We find people that want to do the program, and we have them come to our location. We certify and train them in a week. They go back and they run it. It doesn't cost you anything. We're not trying to make money. We lose money. I'm really good at it. And but we raise scholarships for the girls, because horses are expensive.
Right.
But we've never turned down a girl. Everyone gets in. They pay as much as they can, or none if they can't. And
wow.
But yeah, we'd love to get 1,000 locations across the United States. So.
All right. Well, I think I've already got some people for you in the Tucson area. So offline.
No, we'd really. BridleUpHope.org. BridleUpHope.org would be you could contact me directly, or you can go right there. And
okay, sounds good.
Yeah,
awesome.
Sean, this
is cool. I think this is probably a good spot, Maurice, to wrap up this episode. And
it is perfect to stop right there, Sean. I just you continue to impress me. Again, first met you destroyed me. Now you've built me.
He's building you back up.
Well, you don't know the story though, Maurice. The year before, you guys, it was in the quarterfinals, right? And my good friend, my best receiver, dropped a pass in the end zone to lose the game in the last play of the game to Jordan. the Jordan. So this was a revenge year.
Oh, well,
You just saw the revenge part.
well, revenge was it was paid in double. It was great. Well, again, Sean, thank you for your time. I hope we could do this again. I know you're a busy man, but I would love to follow up, especially with Bridle Up Hope and everything that's going on. So,
yeah, just contact me, Maurice. I'd love to help.
Thanks for the
With
time,
you, Maurice and Gary. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We appreciate your time.
You too. Bye.
Bye.